Welcome to our Going Green podcast. We're going to have a look today at why not go on holiday the eco way? Why go to the beach when you could spend your time in the lovely New Forest or the Lake District? Why do you have to fly somewhere? Over the last couple of years, not many people have managed to fly anywhere really anyway due to the pandemic. So let's see if we can have a look at a few different types of holiday. Now, when I think about eco holidays, though, I'll be honest with you. When I think of them, I think of one of these sort of little wooden buildings out in a sort of a wood.
The cabin in the woods.
Yeah, the little cabin in the woods, and it's all built of sort of eco-friendly wood, and it was cut down by a whatever, and it's got a sort of a very friendly sort of heating system.
Oh, I thought you were more talking it was a naturalist sort of approach as opposed to anything exciting.
Well, I don't know, but it's everything, would be eco-friendly, sort of real green tourism. But actually, I don't think it is it? You can actually go on holiday quite sort of green without actually doing and losing a lot of what I would call a traditional holiday.
Yeah, so let's take it apart of a traditional holiday, and basically is, well, how about selecting a location that's appropriate or more like that's friendly, but it doesn't actually have to be. Let's say you got to go to Sri Lanka, okay? Nice,
yeah.
exotic place, right?
Well, you got to get there.
Well, you got to get there, but that's not quite the point. If you go for a nice hotel, or whatever, that's nice, not very eco-friendly. However, you can actually go on holidays that actually, I wouldn't say benefit, but actually help the local environmental, I wouldn't say economy, that's the wrong way to put it, but local environmental thing in regards to, because lots of people or lots of holiday brokers, not makers, it's one of the things, they've looked at this, and more precisely, people are interested in an eco holiday. So they want to basically provide the service. So you spend your money on them as opposed to anyone else. So the options of selecting an eco holiday is actually numerous and abundant for once. So it's not too bad a thing to go for.
Right. So shall we have a look at some different types of scenarios for holidays? The first one that came to my mind was one that I know quite a lot of my friends have done, and that is they hire a yacht and they sail around the Greek and Turkish islands, and they visit all those things and places, wonderful places. And what they're doing is they're sailing. So they're not producing an awful lot of carbon footprints, with their engine chugging away. And you ask, well, how did they get there? Well, many of them would actually take the train. Now, I know the train is using up a lot of CO2, but it's a much more friendly, efficient way of traveling.
Yeah.
So they can travel down perhaps to Europe via train.
Yeah, the answer to why is a train is generally because although, you're producing technically more emissions from the train than a normal car, because it's spread over, 500 passengers, the amount reduces right down per person or per passenger, as opposed to a car where, let's say you got a family of 4, that those emissions of that car is only spread by 4. So that's why trains are generally more efficient,
especially on a plane.
Yeah, exactly. Planes it's hard to say because yes, they cram 300, but their emissions are way higher. So, you got it. But buses, there's the same argument, more people on a vehicle that uses a car, then, that's how they go for it.
Okay, so my idea of sailing is not too bad as long as you can get there. I looked at sort of another idea, and that was, and you're going to think this a bit daft, I suppose, initially, but taking a road trip through Switzerland, going and visiting all the mountains, getting in your car and driving all up these different mountains and round and down,
Yeah.
but without actually burning any fuel.
You mean taking an electric car?
Taking an electric car around somewhere like Switzerland. And Switzerland has launched a route for electric vehicles with some sort of 300 charging stations. They're really going quite mad on this. And they're trying to allow this grand electric road trip route going through and over sort of passes and by lakes and vineyards. And that sounds really quite nice. And of course,
no pollution because you're in an electric car. Fantastic.
No pollution with the electric car.
Speaking of
and it's all powered by, you'd never guess,
probably what, hydro or something like that.
Eco-friendly sort of
yeah, fair enough.
charging stations.
Well, yeah. Anyway, speaking of all that, I was reading an article about the National Trust. So that's the people who look after the historic homes and buildings and all those sorts of things
in the UK. Yeah.
Anyway, they said they, as a promotional event, or more precisely promotional series, they're actually putting electric charging points at some of their, I wouldn't say historic houses, that's the wrong way to put it, but in the car parks of their historic houses and places, to make sure that people who come along with their electric car, so it's not and can actually charge up whilst they're at their, wherever they are. So it's one of those things where just by thinking about that, they're, enabling the electric car, but they're enabling more eco-friendly alternatives of access or viability to enable people to actually live sustainably and live that eco way.
So I know the National Trust, actually being a conservation charity, they do have quite a few sort of cottages, let's call them that, where they've got lots of solar panels, eco radiators, and so on, to try and sort of improve their sort of sustainability of their houses that you're actually staying in. So you're not using up an awful lot of other things, like
exactly.
Big carbon footprint. They've got, as you said, a lot of electric car charging points. They've got holidays with basically not necessarily a zero in carbon footprint, but a much lower carbon footprint. And we have to face it, it's going to take us some time to get there to zero. And if you're going for a lower carbon sort of based holiday, then that could be significantly better than sort of something else.
So another thing not to look at, but is to check, is whether your holiday, or at least the part of your holiday that you're going on, follows an ecotourism standard. Now,
are there?
Yes, there are. So there's things like the Green Globe, I say awards, but it's more like accolades, as in, they've determined that you're, certified against 40 different criteria to make you eco-friendly. There's things like the Fair Trade South Africa, Ecotourism Kenya, Ecotourism Australia, all these sort of authorities that have been created to help and basically certify not the impact, but the holidays of, or gives the standardization. You've got the Rainforest Alliance. They do lots of standards of sustainability out in Latin America. And then you got Travel Life, which is an international accredited scheme to working across the world to promote sustainability. So if your holiday actually fits in or is certified by one of these places, that means that someone's actually gone through and checked whether that holiday is, I say sustainable, but is guaranteed to be green and eco-friendly, as opposed to a holiday broker just stamping the label on it and saying, look at this holiday, it's eco-friendly, bye, instead of actually being eco-friendly.
Yeah, I think that's always going to be a worry. I was looking at going on holiday, and I'd like to go to France on holiday, and I've got to think about how I'm going to get there. So I could take the train down to somewhere like Portsmouth. So that's going to be a bit more friendly. I've still got all my luggage to take. And then I could use, and I'm going to put a plug in here for Brittany ferries, because they've actually got a more eco-friendly vessel for sailings in the summer.
Oh, fair enough.
And it's using liquid natural gas and an electric hybrid sort of power system. So it's the first of its kind to operate across the channel. So that's going to save getting there. And then when I get to somewhere like Cannes, I can get on the train and I could go down to perhaps the south of France, or maybe I could even hire myself an electric car. Or if I don't want to go any further, then there are some lovely places in Brittany to go and stay. And a lot of those are now rather eco-friendly.
Oh, that's good.
But if I decided to go down a little bit further, I like the Loire Valley, and there are horror stories about my journeys around the Loire Valley.
Oh no.
Some of which you experienced with us. And we had a lot of problems with certain towns getting lost. And especially with my wife being able to say that she was we were driving now on the wrong side of the road as far as she was concerned. So therefore she thought left was right and right was left, and would send us in the wrong direction. So we've arrived at the Loire Valley, and it's a valley. So you can take your e-car round there, or perhaps even better, an e-bike, because yeah, I don't mind doing the odd bit of cycling, and I'm an excellent downhill cyclist.
Right.
But Loire Valley, because it's a valley, it actually does have up as well as down. And with an e-bike, I could actually manage to sort of go further and go around, and I could sort of visit all these lovely vineyards and have a really good time. And a lot of them are very sort of around the way there, lots of vegetarian and vegan picnic stops. Now, that's not for me, because I'm not a very good vegetarian, I will be honest.
No. Yeah.
And I'd probably die as a vegan. But for other people, this might be sort of a superb way of trying to do this with one of these sort of e-bike tours.
So another thing to think about if you're going on this holiday, this is to actually pack lighter. And that's a interesting thing. What do you mean pack lighter? Well, it's actually
your mother wouldn't manage, would she?
Well, no, I can't say that. But it's to take less stuff with you. Now, the reason to take less stuff with you is because, of course, it is, I say less things to bring with you. That's the wrong way to put it. But let's say you're hiking or you're moving, then it's less stuff to move. If you're traveling by car, that's less weight in the car. So then basically it helps the emissions, because obviously the car doesn't have to work as hard. And it's a bunch of other things in regards to, if you're having to carry suitcases, lots of people might take a coach, whereas if you're smaller luggage, you can take it on a train. You've got enough space to take it on board with you, and you don't have to lug it with us, in the luggage compartment, effectively.
If you go somewhere warm, of course, you're not going to wear probably as many clothes. I'm only thinking now I'd wear shorts and a t-shirt, as opposed to if I'm going somewhere else where I'd need my hat, my glove, my scarf, my woolly sort of jumper and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
But the other thing you could do is to take things like some Tupperware, and also take a water bottle, in that case, then you're not buying the plastic water bottle in the country. You're using a refillable one. Granted,
and of course, you're not throwing stuff away.
Not throwing stuff away, which is impacting. Yes, you've got to get the water out and glance over that, but it is to do this sort of, it's not the travel, but not throwing away. The other thing you could do, let's say you're taking, you know, luxury things like shampoo and toothpaste and those sort of things.
Yeah,
They do.
luxury toothpaste.
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay.
Is to actually buy the small travel packs and don't buy sort of this huge tube. Admittedly, if you've got more people in it, it's worth it. But if you're just a single person going out, these small tubes and these small travel packs or whatever they're, bottles, whatever they're more, I wouldn't say friendly, that's the wrong way to put it, but they're more, because of course they're smaller bottles, so there's, they haven't been, less plastic has been used to make them, and so
More expensive, but
a bit more expensive, unfortunately, but it's just how it goes.
Okay, so that's some ideas. I know that single-use plastics are still a problem. I've got myself a nice little scabbard in there. I've got a really sharp metal knife and fork and spoon, and it all goes in a nice little travel pack. And we've used those for years, and all you do is wash them up. And it's much better than having the plastic ones that people have offered you because they cut.
Oh, yes.
And that's good. Right, so we thought of then taking the train. There are quite a lot of nice places where you can get to. Let's suppose I even want to go somewhere like, let's choose a place, random Sweden.
Right.
And if I wanted to go up to Sweden, I've always fancied going to Sweden and Norway. Then what you could do is take the Eurostar from London.
Yeah.
And go across in the Channel Tunnel and then take a train up to Sweden.
Yeah.
And, by taking the train, it's going to be easier. It's going to take a lot longer, but then you can enjoy the trip. There is one sort of thought where you arrive at the airport, you get out, then the other end, and you're suddenly on holiday. But I take the holiday as from the moment I sort of leave my house, and we can drive somewhere and we can stop and we can have a look at the ways. I remember a certain boy, and I'm not going to mention Paul by name, discovering France.
Oh, yes. Well,
you were only very little when you said you discovered. First time abroad, yes,
yeah.
and you were little. Discovering France, yeah, that was quite good. We thought of planting a flag, didn't we, and claiming it for the Queen, but we felt better of that. But you can go most places in Europe by train, and you can not necessarily go from here to there, but you can go from here to somewhere else and stop and enjoy that, and then go on, and you can take several days to get to your holiday, have your holiday, and have several days coming back, and it gives you sort of 2 or 3 holidays for almost the price of one.
Yeah, well, it's the idea of doing, not necessarily the Orient Express directly, but it's the idea that
exactly
the train journey can be the holiday itself, as opposed to you go to a place and that place is the holiday. The journey can also be the holiday.
Yeah, and there are some really fantastic sort of places you can go that you often only see by train because, well, I don't know, when I'm driving down a motorway, even, I don't tend to notice. When I sit in a train, I can look out the window, I kind of think, oh, look, that's pretty.
Yeah.
So it's good for the driver as well. And if I've driven down to the south of France, by the time I've got down there, to be quite honest, I'm actually quite worn out.
Well, yes, yeah.
And when I've driven back, I want another holiday to recover before I sort of go back to work. And if I can take the train, let the train take the strain, as the old adage goes, then I can see all these things. I can actually quite enjoy that little bit of the holiday as well.
Yeah.
But I would still feel that rather than going from A to B, I would still probably like to stop off several places and go and explore on my way down, because I won't have seen these sort of different towns in
Yeah.
wherever I'm going.
But it's also, you could also do another little small thing in relation to that is to go and not necessarily pop off at the big towns. How about the small towns as well?
Yeah.
Because they're all, popular. They're then quite nice, and and one of the adage you hear in all the ecotourism magazines and things is to attempt to try to live like a local, because then you're actually supporting, I say, local businesses, but the local economy in regards to they're not having to put on, say, the fancy meals and things. They're just serving ordinary food and ordinary stuff for ordinary people, and you can actually make the ordinary exotic, if that makes any sense. And suddenly,
Yeah.
you've got this sort of most people like, let's say people like jewelry, but these sort of like, these are charms. They create the charms for the people because they're a little bit superstitious, right? Like that. But you're then paying into that local economy. You're helping to support the small businesses, and even if you stay at one of these Airbnbs, that's supporting a person as opposed to a hotel chain.
So I've got a really good holiday for you then, Paul. Thinking of that, where you've been before, is to send you back to Belgium. And there you can get your Airbnbs, which you're expert on round there. And you could have a nice cycling holiday, visiting perhaps all the different breweries.
Yeah.
And go for a nice sort of beer tasting around some of Belgium's really cool cities and towns. And I would imagine that would rather appeal to you.
Very, very
and
boozy
probably
holiday.
safer than actually if you went on a cycle rather than driving, because you don't want to be drunk in charge of a car.
I don't know, being
Drunk in charge of a bicycle could be bad enough, yes. So we could try that sort of thing with you. So it is really trying to think about doing some other types of holiday, sort of cycling and so on. But there are other ones like not necessarily changing perhaps the idea of a holiday and visiting other places. Like near here, there's a place called the Wolf Conservancy.
Well, yeah, not nearly. So try again. It's a conservatory.
Is it?
Yeah, you spelt it wrong on your little.
Okay, don't worry. Right.
Right.
Anyway, so you can go and visit these wolves and go around and sort of have a nice little chat with them.
Yeah, so it's not quite as what you think of it. Basically, these wolves are in captivity, but they can't be released into, I say, nature,
into the wild
into
again.
the wild. So they're having to be, but they're semi-wild in that regards. And so one of the things is that they do a lot of sort of animal behavior research on them, because it's sort of looking at the pack animal. Yeah, that's the other side of but to support their conservation, they allow you to go walking with the wolves and even to feed the wolves, essentially. So basically they put them on leads and almost like dogs, you can take them on a walking trip. And it's one of those really bizarre things to say, sort of, walking with a wolf and sort of, into the forest, you go on this lead, and they act semi-wild and they go all the places. And it's great because there's two things that supports the conservation efforts they do, but also gives you I wouldn't say eye-opening.
Well, it is. I think it is eye-opening.
Well, yeah, well, I was going to say, it's this knowledge. You actually gain information as opposed to, I stood there and I had a relax on the beach. What did you get out of that? Whereas going on a trip to this things like zoos are always fascinating places to go because, of course, yes, you see the animals, that's great and all, but it's actually supporting all the conservation efforts they do. And by the by, you see the animals at the same time. So, it's one of those efforts where leaving with some information, some knowledge, as opposed to a suntan, could be more beneficial.
Yeah. And on that sort of line, you can also do things like walking holidays, where you go to somewhere like where I've been, the Lake District.
Mm-hmm.
and you can stay in an eco-friendly place, and then you go on different walking holidays, just walking days up round this mountain, round that mountain, or that hill, because they are more hills, and you get some
Yes.
fantastic scenery, which occasionally in the UK you can see through the cloud and the sort of rain, because that's a typical summer's day in the UK, isn't it? But if you want to get away to some more exotic climes, then I think we have to start thinking about, rather than flying, then you might like to let the train do the journey for you. And it's going to take a little bit longer, but you can get there and you can sort of still have your holiday by the sea, doing what you like to do, but you can, just by planning a little bit better, stay in a more eco-friendly place. You can travel a little bit more eco-friendly way getting there, and you can look after the amount of rubbish that you produce and make sure that you don't sort of leave a terrific amount lying around.
Well, yes.
And taking, as far as I'm concerned, taking things like sort of yachts out are great ways of sort of not using electricity yet, or gas, but traveling around, having a look at basically quite a lot of exciting and interesting places. There are, of course, some very organic holidays that you can actually get.
Right. As opposed to what?
And
Vegan
these
holidays?
places are sort of, with eco-friendly meals, as well as sort of eco-friendly sort of cottages, houses. I don't know if I'd really want to do that. Go and stay on an organic farm or small holding and go the complete life of sort of
Well, yeah,
no electricity. I'm not sure that I would really go for all of that.
well, yeah, but the what you're missing out on all that, you see, is the actual take of you're going to a place to relax. You shouldn't have to worry about all these things. It should be a holiday. But let's say you go on holiday, you go to a nice fancy place. What about buying a souvenir? Whoa. Now, if it's something like a local charm that everybody else is buying and using, that's all right. But if something they've made specifically for a tourist, perhaps it's not so.
Yeah, going
friendly.
around the souvenir shops sort of seem to be quite a sort of a thing you do, but it's not necessarily the necessarily the right thing. If you're supporting local trade, then that's good. I had a friend that went to Africa and she broke her shoe, and she supported the local trade by going into this shop. I say shop. She actually said it was a man sitting outside his hut, and he mended her shoes, and he did a fantastic job. And she asked him how much, and he told her, and she said, "Well, I can't pay you that little." So she gave him sort of
something like a £10 note or something.
she gave him something like a £10 note, UK currency. And then she thought he did such a good job, he could mend the other shoes, and he'd gone away because he'd gone to celebrate having that much money. So you can support the locals in different ways sometimes. And it's thinking about having different holidays, maybe even going on I dread to say this, a working holiday where you might actually work to help dig a well, build a bridge, build whatever, as a different sort of way of doing a holiday.
Yes.
Completely different idea. Well, this has been Going Green. We've been looking at some holidays. Now it's coming up for you to try and do those, sort of think of those holidays for next year. Perhaps we've given you some ideas of possibly where to go or possibly where not to. But have a think about those, and we'll see you next time. And it's now goodbye from me and
A goodbye from me.
bye-bye.
Bye.